Here is you. You wants to better himself and improve his life. You was bullied by his parents in the past, by his colleagues at work, at a role he thought he liked but no longer does. You decides to go travelling for a while. He thinks it will be a good way to solve these issues. It is great at first. New people, new environments, but it slowly wears off. He observes when he stays in a place long enough the same feelings of desperation he would get at work. He would move to a new place to avert these feelings whenever he started to feel them creep in. You is starting to realize that his internal world, wherever he goes in the world, is the same. You makes a decision. He knows that he shouldn't be feeling like this. He decides to rent a cheap studio apartment just for a month and be alone and work at some of the issues that are at play. He knows he needs to do this. That's the right next step. But it's a hard next step. But he takes it anyway. After a few days, you realizes something. All he had to do was stop, take a breath, and look at himself. He had never looked at himself. He looks down and he sees cuts, bruises, and wounds that are open. He realized just how hurt and damaged he was. Instead of taking the time to care for himself, he was running away. That's what he was doing when he was traveling. He was running away. In those moments, it was easier to get on with it, rather than look at himself and see how weak and vulnerable he actually is. You was trying to move forward, while he was unconsciously carrying a huge boulder everywhere he went. You knew that he needed to let go of this boulder before he could move forward. For that month, you decides to lick his wounds. He forces himself to go through the experiences of his painful childhood. He writes down his true feelings about his work and his colleagues, and he reads things that just grab him. Spontaneously, he begins to think about what a better life would look like to him. He starts to set goals, ambitions, and decides to make painful decisions which he knows is right. He begins in the mornings to have a cold shower. He meditates. He reads and writes. He cooks his own food. And he tells himself that he is going to try to speak his truth as much as possible. And when the world refuses, he will take care of himself. You went through here a period of inner work. Inner work is essentially when instead of focusing on your external circumstances, so for example, I'm not feeling so great, so I'm going to buy a new car, you instead shift your focus to your internal world. You ask yourself, what is holding me back? What do I do that perpetuates that? What have I done in the past that has led to this place? What am I not doing? Why have I found myself in this situation, and what can I do to get out of it? Oftentimes, when we sabotage ourselves, it is happening because of an unconscious misalignment. For example, you may want to lose weight. You really want to look good, and you know when you look at someone, you feel a motivation to lose the weight. But, on the other hand, you need the comfort of the food that you eat because you do not have the comfort of yourself. His soul is the issue. He needs to go alone himself, perhaps to a mountain cabin for 3 months, write poetry, canoe down a river, and dream. You had all these open wounds of his past, which he did not want to see. As soon as he finally did, he licked them better. It wasn't easy. It was actually extremely hard. It was ugly and it was painful, but he knew that he just had to stick through it. He came back to the real world. He quit his job. He told his parents what he had been harboring for all those years and was at last healed.